In this story, you'll witness just how far a mother is willing to go to protect her son from making the biggest mistake of his life. But the truth she uncovers is far worse than she ever imagined. Don't miss the shocking ending of this emotional drama. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. More powerful and gripping stories are coming soon. Sylvia Walker had lived her entire life with her head held high, a woman of grace, wisdom, and unshakable pride. A black woman who had built a life most could only dream of, standing tall in a world that too often tried to belittle women like her. She was a widow of Leonard Walker, a man whose business empire still thrived because of his hard work and vision. But Leonard had his flaws, and Sylvia had learned long ago that love could be dangerous when mixed with naivety and misplaced trust. Years ago, before Sylvia met Leonard, he had fallen for a woman who only cared about his potential wealth. The scars of that betrayal never fully left him. Sylvia remembered the nights he would sit in the dark, swirling whiskey in his glass, eyes distant, haunted by what could have been. He told Sylvia the story only once, but the weight of it stayed with her forever. "Sylvia, people will smile at your face and scheme behind your back," he had warned. "Love is easy when there's money. The trick is knowing who's still there when all you have is nothing." That lesson etched itself deep in Sylvia's heart. When Leonard passed, he left the empire in Sylvia's capable hands. But he also left her their only son, Jason, her pride and joy, the last piece of the man she loved. Jason was everything a mother could dream of: strong, smart, handsome. But he had inherited his father's big heart, and that frightened Sylvia more than anything. Jason saw the good in people. He wanted to believe in love, in fairness, in a world where hearts mattered more than wallets. Sylvia knew better, and then came Claire. Sylvia first heard of Claire during a family dinner when Jason's eyes lit up like she hadn't seen in years. "Mom, there's someone I want you to meet," he had said. "She's special, different." He wasn't lying. Claire was beautiful, the kind of beauty that made people turn their heads. Blonde hair, porcelain skin, blue eyes that seemed to sparkle whenever she looked at Jason. She was the daughter of a well-known senator, raised in privilege and wealth. Everything about her screamed refinement and class. Sylvia met Claire the next week over dinner at the estate. Claire was perfect. Her smile was polite but not forced. She spoke eloquently about politics, charity work, and the arts. She laughed at Jason's jokes, even the bad ones, and called Sylvia ma'am, with just the right hint of respect. Every word out of her mouth was carefully chosen. Even Sylvia had to admit, Claire was good. After dinner, Jason pulled his mother aside, grinning like a lovesick boy. "What do you think, Mom? Isn't she amazing?" Sylvia smiled, forcing herself to nod. "She's lovely, Jason." But her stomach turned. Something wasn't right. Claire was too perfect, and perfection, Sylvia knew, was often the best mask of all. Weeks passed, and Claire became a constant presence. Friends, family, even the staff adored her. The engagement news spread fast. Jason had found the one. Or so everyone believed. Everyone except Sylvia. Late at night, she sat in her husband's old chair, staring at the fireplace, Leonard's words echoing in her mind. What if Claire was like that woman from Leonard's past? What if Jason was walking straight into a trap? Sylvia could see the headlines already. Senator's daughter marries into black family's fortune. She could almost hear the whispers, the fake smiles, the polite applause hiding judgment. No, she couldn't let that happen. Sylvia wrestled with her thoughts for days. Was she being paranoid? Was it just the scars of the past clouding her judgment? Or was it a mother's instinct screaming at her to protect her child? Every time Jason looked at Claire, so full of hope, Sylvia felt her chest tighten. She had to know the truth. Not what Claire showed the world, but what was underneath that perfect smile. That's when the idea came to her. Desperate, drastic, but the only way. She would see Claire for who she really was. No titles, no cameras, no Jason by her side. Just the real woman, stripped of pretense. Sylvia called the estate manager the next morning. "I need a favor," she said. "Find me a uniform. Starting tomorrow, there's a new maid in the house." And so it began. No one questioned the old black woman who appeared among the staff. She wore the plain black uniform, her silver hair tucked beneath a cap, eyes lowered, voice soft. To everyone else, she was just another servant. Invisible. Except to Claire. The first meeting was uneventful. Claire barely glanced at her. "You're new?" she asked, not even waiting for an answer. "Fine. Just stay out of my way." Sylvia watched, waited. The days turned into a week. Claire remained the epitome of grace. She smiled at the staff, said thank you, offered compliments. She even helped the cook carry a heavy pot once. Jason watched proudly, convinced his mother's fears were unfounded. But Sylvia had learned to look past the surface. There were moments, fleeting, but there, when Claire's eyes darkened, when her smile faltered, when her hand twitched in irritation if a servant didn't move fast enough. Little things, easy to miss. One night, Sylvia sat alone in the kitchen, polishing silverware long after the others had left. She stared at her reflection in the metal, questioning everything. Am I wrong? Maybe she does love him. Maybe this is all in my head. But the nagging voice wouldn't leave. If you're wrong, you'll be a bitter old woman. But if you're right and stay silent, you'll bury your son's heart. Sylvia clenched her jaw. She had to be sure. The next morning, she stayed close, listening, watching, waiting for the mask to slip, because no one could pretend forever. Sylvia adjusted quickly to her role as the invisible maid in her own home. Wearing the plain black uniform and keeping her head bowed, she moved silently through the halls, observing everything. Claire remained the perfect fiancée, her smile as dazzling as ever, her laugh soft and musical, charming everyone around her. Jason glowed whenever she was near, and even the staff seemed taken by her easy manner and graceful presence. Claire made sure to be kind to the staff when Jason was around, helping the cook with simple tasks or complimenting the gardeners on the flowers. Every action seemed genuine, every word carefully chosen to paint her as the ideal future wife. Jason grew more convinced with each passing day that he had found the woman of his dreams. Sylvia watched carefully, her sharp eyes missing nothing. There was a tightness to Claire's smile that only appeared when she thought no one was looking, a slight roll of her eyes when the butler took too long to bring her wine, a barely concealed sneer when one of the maids accidentally brushed past her. But as soon as Jason appeared, Claire transformed. She would reach out, tenderly taking his hand, smiling at him with eyes full of love and devotion. Sylvia started doubting herself. Maybe she was seeing things where there was nothing. Maybe the past was haunting her judgment. Still, her instincts screamed that something was wrong. Sylvia decided to push a little harder. One afternoon, she orchestrated a small test. As Claire lounged by the pool, sipping on a cocktail, Sylvia passed nearby carrying a heavy tray. She stumbled, allowing the tray to clatter loudly against the ground, though nothing spilled. Claire flinched, her face twisting with disgust for a brief second. "Watch it, old woman," she snapped, but as quickly as it came, the anger vanished, replaced by that perfect sugary smile. I mean, be careful next time, all right?" Jason wasn't around. No one else heard. Sylvia filed the moment away in her mind. Later that evening, as Jason and Claire dined together, Sylvia stayed close, pretending to clear the table. She caught fragments of their conversation. Jason gushed about their future, about the family he wanted to build, the home they'd share. Claire responded perfectly, agreeing sweetly, adding little details that made Jason beam with joy. But Sylvia noticed how Claire's eyes drifted away, her smile faltering for a second before she caught herself. Another test came 2 days later. Sylvia forgot to bring Claire's requested tea. After waiting for 15 minutes, Claire stormed into the kitchen, her face twisted in irritation. "Where's my tea?" she hissed, not caring that other staff members were present. Sylvia apologized meekly, bowing her head. Claire's jaw clenched, but Jason's approaching footsteps forced her to smooth her expression. "It's fine," she said sweetly, loud enough for Jason to hear. "Mistakes happen." Jason smiled proudly, oblivious to the brief flash of hatred in Claire's eyes. That night, Sylvia sat alone in the dark, her hands shaking slightly. "Maybe I am looking for something that isn't there," she whispered, but deep down, she knew better. There was a darkness in Claire that only peeked through when she thought no one was watching. The following day, Sylvia overheard the head housekeeper speaking with one of the older maids. "She's sweet to the young ones, but have you noticed how she talks to Martha like she's nothing?" "I've noticed," the maid replied. "She's got a mean streak, that one. Hides it well, though." The words hit Sylvia like a stone. She wasn't imagining it. Others saw it too, even if they were too afraid to say anything aloud. Determined, Sylvia continued her observations. Claire became increasingly comfortable, her mask slipping more often. She would make biting comments under her breath when Jason wasn't nearby, treat the older staff with thinly veiled contempt, and roll her eyes dramatically when forced to engage with anyone she deemed beneath her. Jason, blind in his love, saw none of it. He spoke excitedly of their upcoming engagement party, of the future he envisioned so clearly. Sylvia listened, forcing a smile, but her heart ached. She knew now that Claire was playing a role, and Jason was her greatest fool. One evening, Jason approached Sylvia in the kitchen. "You've met Claire now, right? Isn't she wonderful? I've never felt this way before." Sylvia's throat tightened. "She's very polished," she managed. Jason laughed. "That's what I love about her. She fits right in, Mom. She makes me feel like I finally belong." Sylvia nodded slowly, watching the boy she raised, so full of hope and dreams. He didn't see it. He couldn't. That night, Sylvia made a decision. She had been careful, patient, but now it was time to see the full truth. No more half measures. She would stay close, wait for the mask to slip completely, because she knew no one could fake kindness forever, not someone like Claire. And when it happened, Sylvia would be ready. The next morning, she prepared herself. Jason was taking a business trip for 2 days, leaving Claire alone in the house. It was the perfect opportunity. Sylvia blended into the background, quiet and unseen, watching Claire like a hawk. Claire, free from Jason's gaze, relaxed. The sweetness faded, the sharpness returned. She barked orders, dismissed servants with a wave, and sneered when she thought no one important was looking. Sylvia's heart pounded in her chest. She was close. The truth was coming. All she needed now was to catch Claire's true face, her real intentions laid bare. And Sylvia knew it would happen soon, because people like Claire couldn't hide their disdain forever. not when they thought they'd already won. Sylvia waited and watched. Sylvia felt the tension build over the next 2 days. Jason was away, and the estate felt different without his bright energy. Claire strutted through the house like a queen without witnesses, shedding the mask of politeness she wore around Jason. Sylvia stayed close, always silent, always observing. There was a shift in the air, and she knew the moment of truth was coming. Late in the afternoon, Sylvia was dusting near the living room when she heard Claire's phone ring. Claire answered quickly, her voice low but sharp. "Finally," Claire snapped, "do you know how hard it is pretending to like these people?" Sylvia froze in place, heart racing as she strained to hear every word. Claire laughed coldly. "No, you don't get it. The old bitch walks around here like she owns everything. Oh, wait, she does, for now. I swear, I'm counting the days. Once that ring is on my finger, I'll make sure I never have to see her face again." Sylvia's hands trembled, but she forced herself to stay still, hidden by the heavy curtains. Claire's voice rose slightly as she continued pacing the room. "And Jason, poor dumb Jason. He looks at me like I'm some goddess. It's pathetic. Honestly, if he wasn't sitting on all this money, I wouldn't give him the time of day. You should see the way he talks about building a future, starting a family. As if I'd ever have his kids. Ugh. The idea of being stuck with a bunch of little brown babies running around? No, thank you." Sylvia felt like she had been punched in the chest. Her jaw clenched as she struggled not to storm into the room. Claire's laughter echoed through the house. And the staff, God, they're worse. All these black faces bowing and scraping. It's disgusting, but I smile, play the part. You should have seen me helping the cook last week. I almost gagged when that old woman touched my hand. She paused, then sneered. It's almost too easy. A few more weeks and the prenup will be done. After that, I'll bleed him dry. Daddy says once I'm in, there's no way they can cut me out. I'll be Mrs. Walker, and this place will be mine." Sylvia could barely breathe. She had suspected, but hearing it, hearing the pure malice and racism pour from Claire's mouth, was worse than she had imagined. She stepped back, accidentally nudging a vase with her elbow. It wobbled but didn't fall. Claire spun around, eyes narrowing. "Who's there?" she barked. Sylvia quickly ducked further behind the curtain. Claire stalked to the doorway, glanced around, but saw no one. With a dismissive snort, she grabbed a glass of wine and stormed back into the living room. Still seething, Claire grabbed her phone again. "Hey, sorry. Thought I heard something. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, once I'm done here, I'm throwing the biggest party this place has ever seen. Only real people invited. None of these pathetic servants. And that includes the old maid. God, I hate her face. She looks at me like she knows something." Claire laughed again. Maybe I should put her in her place. As if the universe was testing Sylvia's strength, Claire stormed toward the kitchen where Sylvia had retreated. She found her there, wiping down the counter. "You," Claire sneered. "Pour me another glass." Sylvia moved slowly, controlling the shaking in her hands. She handed Claire the wine without meeting her eyes. Claire smirked, then, without warning, she turned the glass upside down and poured the entire contents onto the pristine white carpet in the dining room. Sylvia gasped, unable to stop herself. "Clean it," Claire ordered coldly. "Now." Sylvia stared at the spreading red stain, her chest heaving. "I won't," she whispered. Claire's eyes flared. "What did you say, you worthless bitch?" Sylvia finally looked up, her eyes burning with rage and pain. "I said I won't. You can't treat people like this." Claire laughed bitterly. "You're a maid. Nothing. I can do whatever I want." She leaned in, lowering her voice to a venomous hiss. "And when Jason comes back, I'll tell him you did it. I'll say you tripped, spilled it all, and tried to lie. Who do you think he'll believe, huh? Me, his fiancée, or some pathetic old black maid?" She paused, grinning cruelly. "Face it, you're nothing here. And soon, neither will he be, because once I'm in, this whole place is mine." Before Sylvia could answer, a cold voice echoed from the doorway. "Is that so?" Both women turned sharply. Jason stood there, his face pale, eyes dark with fury. He had returned early. Claire gasped, stumbling back. "Jason! It's not what it sounds like. Jason cut her off, his voice shaken. "I heard everything, Claire, every word. How long? How long have you been lying to me?" Claire's lips trembled. "I was drunk. I didn't mean it. She's lying. You know how these people are." Jason's eyes burned. "These people? You mean the people who've taken care of me my whole life? The people you planned to step on once you got what you wanted?" He turned to Sylvia, realization dawning. "Mom?" Sylvia's eyes filled with tears as she nodded slowly. "I had to be sure, Jason. I had to protect you." Jason faced Claire again, his voice like ice. "Get out, now." Claire shook her head frantically. "No, Jason, please. I love you. It was just a stupid joke." Jason's lips curled in disgust. "You don't know the meaning of love. You think you can come into my home, spit on my family, and walk away with our name? Get out before I have you thrown out." Claire's face twisted with rage. "You'll regret this. You think anyone else will want you?" Jason didn't answer. He turned his back, wrapping his arms around Sylvia. "I don't care. As long as I have my family, I'll be fine." Claire stood there for a moment longer, trembling, then grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Silence filled the house. Jason buried his face in his mother's shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I should have listened." Sylvia held him tight, her heart breaking and relieved all at once. "You had to see it for yourself, baby. Now you know." Jason nodded slowly. "I know, and I swear I'll never let anyone treat us like that again." They stood there, holding on to each other as the weight of what could have been finally lifted. The mask was off, the truth was out, and they were free. The house was silent after Claire's departure, the air heavy with everything that had just transpired. Jason sat quietly in his father's old leather chair, staring at the empty glass in his hand while Sylvia stood nearby, watching her son with a mixture of sorrow and relief. Neither of them spoke for a long time, both processing the moment that had just ripped apart Jason's future plans. Sylvia's heart ached seeing the pain in his eyes, but deep down she knew this was necessary. Jason finally broke the silence, his voice rough. "I need to understand." "Mom, did you know from the beginning?" Sylvia sighed deeply and took a seat across from him. "I suspected she was too perfect, too. Polished women like that don't come into a man's life unless they want something, but I needed to be sure." Jason, his eyes narrowed painfully. "And that's why you did. All this pretended to be a maid watched me, watched her." Sylvia nodded slowly. "I had to. Jason, you're my son, the only thing I have left in this world. If she had truly loved you, I would have stepped back, but she didn't, and you heard it yourself." Jason lowered his head, fighting the sting in his eyes. "I feel like a damn fool." Sylvia reached out, placing a gentle hand over his. "You're not a fool, you're a man in love. Men in love always see what they want to see. That's why I had to see the rest." Jason exhaled sharply, looking up. "You heard what she said about our family, about me." Sylvia's eyes darkened. "Yes. I heard every vile word." Jason clenched his fists, anger flashing across his face. "She used me. She used my love, my trust." Sylvia leaned back, her voice steady. That's what people like her do, Jason. They smile in your face and stab you the moment you turn your back. Jason stood pacing the floor, running a hand through his hair. I would have married her, Mom. I was going to build a life with her. Imagine what would have happened. Sylvia's voice hardened. That's why I did it, Jason. I couldn't let you make that mistake. I couldn't let another woman destroy this family the way that woman hurt your father. Jason stopped and turned his eyes full of regret and pain. Why didn't I see it? Why was I so blind? Sylvia smiled softly. Because you're good, Jason. Because you believe in people, that's not a weakness. It's a strength. But only if you learn from this. He sank back into the chair, staring at the ceiling. What if she was right? What if nobody wants me without the money? Sylvia's eyes flashed. Don't you ever say that. Don't you ever believe that you are worth more than every dollar in this house. You're my son, and any woman worth having will see that. Jason looked at her, his jaw tightening. I don't know if I'll ever trust anyone again. Sylvia stood walking over to him. You will, but next time you'll look with your heart and your mind, not just your eyes. Jason's lips curled into a bitter smile. Do you know what hurts most? I really thought she loved me. Sylvia nodded slowly. That's the worst part, realizing someone you loved never loved you back. But she kissed his forehead gently. You survived. That's what matters. Jason took a deep breath, then exhaled slowly. Mom, what do I do now? Sylvia sat down beside him, her tone firm. You move forward. You learn from this and you remember who you are. Jason Walker, you are your father's son, and mine, no one takes that from you. Jason leaned back, closing his eyes. I don't know how to face people, the engagement, the party, everything's ruined. Sylvia shook her head. No, it's not ruined, it's just changed. You stand tall and tell the truth, you owe no one an explanation, but if they ask you, tell them the truth. She wasn't who she pretended to be. Jason rubbed his face and finally nodded. Maybe you're right, but it's going to be hard. Sylvia smiled sadly. The right thing is always hard, baby, but you'll come out stronger. Jason was quiet for a moment before looking at her. Thank you, Mom, for everything, for protecting me. Sylvia felt tears prickle in her eyes. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Jason placed his hand over hers. You've always been the strongest person I know. Sylvia chuckled through the tears. That's because I had to be for you. Jason looked out the window, the sun, setting over the estate, casting long shadows. It feels different now, like the house is breathing again. Sylvia followed his gaze. She's gone, and good riddance. Jason nodded slowly. I need to make changes. Mom, I need to find myself again. Sylvia squeezed his hand. You will, and when you're ready, the right woman will come. One who sees you, not the name, not the money. Just you. Jason smiled faintly. If she exists, Sylvia laughed. She does, and you'll know her when you meet her because she'll love this family as much as you do. Jason nodded, settling back into the chair for the first time in days, his shoulders relaxing just a little. Sylvia sat quietly beside him, feeling peace wash over her. They had survived this storm together, and now they could finally heal. Jason sighed, closing his eyes. I'll be better next time, Mom, I promise. Sylvia smiled softly. I know you will, son. I know you will. Time passed slowly after the storm that had nearly destroyed Jason's heart and Sylvia's peace. The house that once felt suffocating during Claire's presence slowly began to breathe again. Jason focused on his work, rebuilding not just his confidence, but his sense of purpose. Sylvia watched him quietly every day, praying that her son's heart would heal from the betrayal he had suffered. Seasons changed, and life settled into a new rhythm. Jason no longer spoke about Claire or the pain she had caused. Instead, he poured himself into the family business, expanding their charitable projects and investing in community programs his father once dreamed of. Sylvia was proud, but she knew there was still a void in her son's heart that work alone could not fill. Then, one ordinary afternoon nearly a year later, Jason met Monica. She was nothing like Claire. Monica was a schoolteacher, soft-spoken with warm brown eyes and a kind smile. She didn't come from wealth or power, but from hard-working parents who taught her the value of honesty and respect. Their meeting was simple and unexpected at a local community event Jason was sponsoring. Monica was there with her students, and when Jason saw her helping a little boy tie his shoe, his heart skipped in a way it hadn't in a long time. They spoke casually at first, sharing laughs over the children's antics, but something about Monica's sincerity drew Jason in. There was no pretense, no performance, just a genuine woman who saw the world with empathy and grace. Sylvia met Monica 2 weeks later, and for the first time she felt no unease, no suspicion, only calm. Monica addressed the staff by name, thanked everyone who served her, and when she spoke to Sylvia, it was with the same respect and warmth she showed to Jason. Sylvia observed carefully, but there was no mask to peel away. Monica was simply herself. At dinner, Monica spoke of her students, her passion for teaching, and her dreams of building a better future. Jason listened with rapt attention, his eyes shining in a way Sylvia hadn't seen in years. Afterward, Sylvia pulled Jason aside, her voice trembling with cautious hope. "She's different, Jason. She's real." Jason smiled and nodded. "I know, Mom. I can feel it." Weeks turned into months, and their bond grew naturally without pressure or grand declarations. There were no talks of money, no subtle hints about inheritance, only shared moments of laughter, deep conversations, and quiet support. Jason felt seen, truly seen for the first time, not as the heir to a fortune, but as a man with dreams, fears, and a heart still learning to heal. When Jason finally proposed, it was simple and heartfelt. No elaborate gestures, just a quiet evening where he looked Monica in the eyes and told her, "I don't want a perfect life. I want a real one with you." Monica cried tears of joy, not because of a diamond ring, but because she knew Jason meant every word. Sylvia was there watching from a distance, her chest swelling with pride and relief. She had feared her son might never open his heart again, but here he was, stronger, wiser, and finally choosing love for the right reasons. The wedding was small, intimate, nothing like the grand spectacle once planned with Claire. This time, the staff sat alongside the guests, treated as family, not servants. There were no whispered judgments, no fake smiles, only genuine joy. Sylvia stood beside Jason as he exchanged vows with Monica, her eyes misty as she realized the full circle they had come. When it was her turn to speak, Sylvia raised her glass and said words she had carried in her heart for so long. "This family is not built on money or power, but on love, respect, and loyalty. Today, I see my son not as a wealthy man, but as a man truly loved for who he is. And that is the greatest fortune of all." Jason smiled, tears in his eyes as he looked at his mother. "Thank you, Mom, for protecting me even when I didn't see the danger, and for teaching me what real love looks like." The celebration lasted late into the night, filled with laughter, music, and dancing. Jason and Monica held each other close, surrounded by people who cared not for their wealth, but for their hearts. Sylvia watched them, her heart full, knowing she had done what she set out to do. She had protected her family, her son, and now she could finally rest knowing Jason had found his true happiness. As the night drew to a close, Jason found his mother on the terrace staring up at the stars. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders and whispered, "I chose with my heart this time, Mom, not my eyes." Sylvia smiled, leaning against him. "I know, baby, I know, and it's the best choice you've ever made." They stood there in comfortable silence, watching the night sky as a cool breeze swept through, carrying with it the promise of a new beginning. The past was behind them, the pain a distant memory. What remained was a future built not on wealth or appearances, but on the simple, unshakable power of love. That's the story, friends. Life always finds a way to reveal the truth. What do you think? Did the mother do the right thing? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. More powerful and inspiring stories are coming soon.